Key 311. The keys of the universe to come tell us our consciousness time zone is a membrane existing between fields of luminaries. Luminaries sow additional seeds of light into the field of the membrane growth. This is the meaning of the many and the one. The mind is a field of light for the body, yet the mind is in a field of light, and a field of light within a field of light, and eternal light. One cannot understand the physical body without understanding three other bodies of illumination. One cannot understand the three bodies of illumination without the network of membrane in the physical universe in the likeness and appearance of fire. Man will understand the many and the one. The imprint of the divine mind upon the emanations of the Aeon Sof, the limitless light, commissions a network of divine linkages which shape the universes continually being created. These universes emanate from the consciousness light forces that are shared by the Father's consciousness and the consciousness domains of Elohim. The consciousness time zones are the boundaries of consciousness expansion for the individual emanations of the divine mind. The more sophisticated the consciousness, the more complex the time zone. Therefore, infinite creative programs are possibilities for consciousness expression and expansion in an infinite number of universes are limited only to the singular Elohistic imprints of light emanating from the divine mind. The consciousness time zone is the collective gathering of singular imprints into a hierarchical structure of infinity infinity, my goodness, which defines the field existing between luminaries. It unifies individual programs of luminaries so that a given number of creator gods share a common spiritual purpose. For this reason, the domain of a consciousness time zone is to be found in the origin of consciousness itself. The programs of the Father's consciousness are limited to the fields of luminaries by the way they use their collective affinities to connect to the Father's cosmic law with the creative logic which must operate within the light continuum. In essence, the consciousness time zone is the divine configuration whereby the many programs of the creator gods, the Elohim, and the physical forms of creation all share a major manifestation of the Aeon Sof light radiations. These divine radiations set the actual boundaries of the consciousness time zone and subdivide into the programs of beginning and end, i.e., a house of or mansion world of light. Within these programs of creation and expansion, the light radiations from the etheric light regions and the physical substratum with synthesis and holistic membrane unifying all elemental forms, serving a divine program. In the drawing of physical worlds created out of each consciousness time zone, the Elohim creators use the emanations of matter waves and time waves to form the necessary plans of intersecting visible and invisible spectrums. We must literally leave our consciousness time zone before we see that its boundaries are not those of actual time or space, but that of consciousness purification. In order to go beyond this consciousness time zone, I had to realize Enoch's program of consciousness development could not go into the higher council's presence of the 24 elders who sit within multiple consciousness time zones of the Father. For this reason, Metatron took me into his own consciousness vehicle which is beyond the Elohim worlds of light. In summary, the consciousness time zone has its boundaries in consciousness development, creating time regions that are used in a multitude of ways, fulfilling the goals that consciousness sets for itself. The major goal is the sowing of seeds from the collective fields of the luminaries for the purpose of rejoicing in all of the infinite possibilities of unfolding the Father's mind. The unfoldment of the divine mind's programs of light energy purification requires continuous formation, restoration of divine seeds of light. Through this unfoldment, the entropic regions of less desirable worlds are either restored or fall away as imperfect creation. In this expansion, there are two creations simultaneously occurring at all times. We shall term them the divine spiritual and the physical. The divine creation program is given as a pre-existent blueprint composed of seeds of light. This divine creation is a continuous pulse of living light which connects the minds of the creator gods of the consciousness time zone who serve the ancient head of days. The seeds are instant light images from a treasury of thought forms shared with the higher divinities for the purification of all energy dimensions through the divine mind of wisdom and consciousness mind of light expands, forming regions of non-physical membrane growth. The divine creation initiates through templates of energy configurations which shape multiple energy spectrums and localized fields of negative mass which precede the shaping of physical reality. The creator gods require certain mechanistic forms for testing in their creative impulse, for which reason they created the physical worlds. The physical worlds are seeded by templates which contain the blueprint for gradual evolution through a sequence of biochemical stages. Therefore, the physical worlds operate within time lag dimensions because they are subordinate to a divine program of consciousness activity. In other words, the time lag is created by virtue of the seed forming being extended into physical space. Therefore, the time lag is a physical separation which may exist in time in terms of millions of light years between the energy grids of creation and the human vantage point. However, from the standard point of higher spiritual reality, it is only consciousness which separates man from God, and the realization that the divine template is only the other side of the light directly within man's presence at all times. When the human mind receives events outside of its physical time frame of reference, it will perceive the presence of the second world, which is operating faster than the conventional physical brain process. Therefore, it will see how our physical world is within a time lag subordinate to high-speed events taking place in the second world. This second world shapes the conventional brain process through time waves, which are used by the conventional brain to recall memory, to capture events, and to participate in the thought structure of parallel worlds of intelligence. The supra-consciousness continuum, which makes this possible, emanates from the higher consciousness exercising a superior interpretive and controlling role upon the neutral biological events of mental time interplaying with matter waves and time waves of the light continuum. In actuality, this higher consciousness mind operates through the divine worlds, which in turn affects the physical worlds through consciousness image programs of the light continuum, which are not limited to time differences. The self-realization self-realized mind can then modulate time differences to step in and out of multiple realities between the physical world and the spiritual world, out of which our physical reality is extended. Connection between the spiritual and the physical programs is through a consciousness blueprint or template which interfaces with the seed of light coming from the spiritual worlds of thought to form the seeds of material form. Unfolding within the physical layers of creation, it is through the phantom bundles that the seed forms are transplanted from the consciousness template into the energy grids that are used to activate the physical layers of creation. Essentially, there are many templates connecting the physical and consciousness layer of reality. As the phantom bodies wear out, they are replaced by the light structures which correspond to the activity of the seed form. All, however, must relate to a divine template of the creator gods of the Elohim, through which they extend their sublime teachings into a template recorder cell in the midst of that which is defined as a mansion world containing myriad galaxies. The individual recorder cell can receive different forms of the spatial coding of light. Therefore, the codes of light operate through myriad forms of the Sephirotic emanations, which break down in the physical world into sets of pulse group gravitational waves operating in a vacuum, etc. The template recorder cell allows for multiple levels of firing rates, which are collectively composed from various types of waves, which permit the geometry of a seed form of light to move from one state of consciousness to the other. The higher evolution is also able to beam spiritual knowledge from the recorder cell to the specific localized intelligence. For example, through the multi-light image transformation, the recorder cell template allows for light impulses arriving from a divine template to be allocated to specific localized zones of consciousness where they are adapted to the paradigms necessary for the distribution of light. The template recorder cell sends out thought forms of information which are continually active in space. Forms of advanced physical intelligence can directly tap into this information if they have a crystalline network within their brain cavity. For this reason, the brains of advanced physicals will reveal the right and left hemispheres fused, and a small crystal network in the right frontal lobe, which acts as a crystal recorder cell or third brain, transposing the language of the higher evolution into the vernacular. This is the meaning of the many and the one, and many templates or monitoring mechanisms of light connecting one program with many programs of organization. And at the head of these many templates, there is the pulsating divine template, which allows for the processing of large amounts of information for local application. This triggers the divine calling frequency, which is available for universal application. Consequently, when the divine template is connected with the divine language being processed through the other templates of light, there is a synthesis of many consciousness forms of light. These consciousness forms of light are governed in turn by the hierarchy of the Elohim, who advise the lower evolutionary hierarchies on what information should be placed within the respective recorder cells.